So, welcome back to another lecture. I have a topic here that is very controversial, but before you jump to conclusions, just hear me out, and hopefully you'll leave much more empowered than you ever imagined. So, I submit to you, addiction is not what you think it is. So you're probably asking me, well, how could you say something like that? I see Alcoholics Anonymous everywhere. I see people constantly addicted to drugs, alcohol, porn, etc. Well, let me tell you a story. About over 20 years ago, I used to be a raging alcoholic. Literally, I would, first thing after work or whatever crappy job I had at the time, I would head immediately to the bar, and I would drink from 7 to 3 or 4 in the morning. Then I would attempt to go to work. Some would call this a functioning alcoholic. And during the weekend, I would just completely get wasted, to the point where if I stopped drinking, I would actually have the shakes. I would have hallucinations. So keep in mind, I'm not saying there's no such thing as a physical reaction to a physical dependency. That's not what I'm saying. So follow along. So this was basically all through my 20s. I suffered through this. All I could think about was getting a drink. It was very, very stressful for me and my family. My parents found it very stressful because I was living at home. I was unable to take care of myself fully. In addition, basically I couldn't really have any functional relationships with any women or girlfriends because I always put alcohol first. It's one of those really, really bad things. And I would try and try again to quit, but I couldn't. Even when I lost a job, I'd actually resort to stealing money. That's how bad I was to this addiction. Eventually, I was being threatened to be kicked out the house, and that really wasn't really working. And I looked up Alcoholics Anonymous online, and I discovered that their rate of success was absolutely insanely small, like less than 5% or 5 or 20%, but whatever it was very, very small. And those who always went through the program, there's a high probability you're going to start drinking again. So that didn't sound right to me. So eventually the higher self stepped in, and I almost died one night. And as a result, I was bedridden for about 3 or 4 days, and my parents had to take care of me. I had a bad reaction to alcohol and some other medicine. And so I decided I was going to quit for all, once and for all for good. So once again, I began the journey. I lasted for about a month, and then I was tempted to start drinking again, and I couldn't stop myself. Eventually, it occurred to me that the issue was, thanks to one of my mentors, James Ramey, one of the issues was that I wasn't necessarily addicted, and no one's really addicted to alcohol. What was really going on is I had a really low sense of self-worth. I had a very low sense of self-esteem, and it caused pain in my nervous system. And this pain was something that was so overwhelming and so suppressed that alcohol was the only thing I could use to numb it. But at the time, all I knew was that when I drank it, I felt better. So once I resolved this issue deep within me, this really, really bad sense of self-worth, all of a sudden there really was no longer any need to numb it. And to resolve these issues, you can't sit through a talking session. You can't sit through counseling. It has to be something in the subconscious mind. This is why counseling sessions and all this absolute nonsense doesn't work, because you're addressing the conscious mind. And the conscious mind has a really good tendency of playing tricks with us and telling us what we want to hear so that we don't get down to the core. So you need to go to the subconscious, either through quantum healing, subliminals, traditional hypnosis, energy work, whatever it is. So after that was cleared for me, of course, I had to deal with the physical withdrawals, which could easily be addressed with high-dose vitamin C and high-dose vitamin D, or just going cold turkey. So years later now, when I want to have a drink, I'm able to drink whiskey, I can drink beer, and not only can I drink it, but I no longer have a desire for another drink after it. There is no insatiable black pit that I have to vanquish or to get down to. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm not just talking out my ass. In my experience, every single client I've ever had that's had a serious addiction is suffering from some kind of really horrible internal trauma, emotional trauma, either emotional abuse, psychological scarring, whatever it is there. It's so deeply in the subconscious mind that alcohol happens to be the choice of medicine, of medication to numb that. But when you remove the cause of the emotional pain, there is no more need for numbing. So I know a few of you are going to ask other questions out there, such as, what about people who have alcoholism that run in the family? Well, I'm going to address that. Listen very carefully. It's been proven, I'm going to put a link below, it's been proven by science that pain and trauma can be genetically passed down through your DNA. So think about what I'm saying. Trauma and pain can be passed down through the DNA. There was an experiment done with mice where up into 10 generations past the original mice they work with, they were able to verify there was a genetic memory of pain associated with a certain smell with mice. This memory was carried on over 10, 20 generations of the mice. It was literally carried in the DNA. So when someone is inclined to alcoholism in the family, what they're really saying is that past generations found that alcohol was the most efficient way to deal with whatever pain is in the body. So this memory is passed on to the next offspring. So and also the trauma is passed off to the next offspring. So what people don't realize is the coping mechanisms and the trauma itself is genetically carried down through DNA. So this leads to a whole other discussion we need to get into later, but this is why people say alcoholism run in the family. What they're trying to say is that their ancestors had trauma and a way of coping with that trauma that was passed down through the DNA of the offspring. Now, this can also be cleared as well. The trauma that you can get from your ancestors and the coping mechanism itself, plus the own trauma that you picked up in this lifetime, they can all be addressed directly using quantum healing, hypnosis, energy to work, whatever deals directly with the energetic body and the subconscious mind. So you're probably asking me, well, then why do they keep telling people once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic? Well, look around you. Look in the society that we're living in. Does it strike you that we're living in a society that encourages independence, strength, and sovereignty? No, we're in a culture and a society that encourages victim consciousness. It encourages people to always project their power no matter what it is, projecting it into money, onto substances, onto alcohol, onto drugs, onto politicians. Our whole culture, the objective of the culture is for you to perceive yourself as a powerless being where you need something from outside of yourself to be complete. And also, how more soul crushing can you get than to walk around believing that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic? Can you think of a better way to destroy someone's self-esteem, for them to believe on a fundamental level that they're flawed, that they're broken? Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not encouraging you to go drink and do drugs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not encouraging you to go around and do drugs. I'm not encouraging you to drink. I'm not encouraging you to do pornography. That's not what I'm saying. So do not misinterpret what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is that these addictions that you think you have are just a coping mechanism for deep trauma that is within you that you're not aware of or that you've repressed. So some people will tell me, well, what happens when someone hits rock bottom and they start to change? Well, do you remember my last video when I talked about how everything is from the subconscious, right? Well, when you hit rock bottom, this is one way to do it, but it's not the only way. When you hit rock bottom, you've essentially experienced so much pain that your subconscious mind does a paradigm shift. And it decides that whatever in there that is causing you, whatever trauma, whatever coping mechanism that you're using to deal with the pain is no longer acceptable. It can no longer work. However, that does not erase the pain itself. This is why people can sometimes suffer from relapses, because the pain itself has not been addressed. So if you're suffering from any type of addiction, any type of compulsion, whether it be social media itself is a compulsion, pornography, alcoholism, drugs. First of all, you need to understand that you're suffering from a severe internalized trauma, emotional trauma, psychological, physical trauma, whatever it is, something that's deep inside your subconscious mind. And this is why it can't be talked out of you. So the first step you need to do is understand that there's nothing wrong with you, is that you're just using a coping mechanism, because it's the only coping mechanism that you've been able to find at this point that works. So the next step of what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find someone, whether it's a hypnotist, whether it's an energy worker, some kind of tool to extract and to heal whatever trauma is within you. And that also requires courage on your part. Now, this being said, I hope you're able to use this information, and legally speaking, I have to tell you that I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. This is spiritual advice only, based upon my own personal experience. In the end, do what is right for you. Do what gives you the most empowerment, because your life and your free will always belongs to you. If you have any questions, you can click on the link below. If you're interested in some programs to help you heal whatever trauma you have inside, I've put that in the link below. And also, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button. It lets the algorithm know that this video is useful and we can get it out to help more people. All right, thanks, and I hope you have a great week.